good evening, or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and welcome to the very first 2022 edition of Across the Pitch, Across the Pub. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm here with my co-hosts Darren Woodhead and Tony Robinson today. And it's a very special episode because we have the first episode of the year, and to ring in the new year. We also have the January transfer window is upon us. Is kind of the big news that happens in the world of football in the new year. But before we get into talking about football, how have you guys been, and how was your holidays?
Yeah, happy New Year to both of you. Yeah, nice and, pretty quiet. COVID's still around us, so we've still got a few restrictions, but managed to have a pretty normal Christmas. What about yourselves?
Merry Christmas. Well, it's Merry Christmas past that now. Happy New Year to both of you. Same thing. Family came to visit for 2 or 3 days. I think we had a house full, and then as soon as the groceries were gone, they left. So other than that, I had a great time. So I'm glad to be back talking some football with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And Happy New Year and happy holidays in general to everybody. And yeah, I think that this year was kind of a little bit more normal than last year in terms of, it being the second year of dealing with COVID and whatnot. But, certainly still plenty of masks and restrictions. And hopefully by the end of 2022, we can, finally say goodbye to COVID. But what was that, a firework?
Not at my end. No.
well, I don't know. I thought maybe you were celebrating the new year and it had one firework left over.
I have been having gas problems, but that wasn't it.
And with that, let's talk some football. Now, I think the big kind of ongoing story for Accrington Stanley that's been off the pitch, if you will, has been the ongoing saga of Dion Charles, and it appears that has finally come to a close with him making his way to Bolton Wanderers Football Club recently on a transfer. And guys, I think that we definitely need to wrap this situation up from an Accrington standpoint and, kind of give our opinions on, what we think happened. And you guys start first, because I have a feeling that what I'm going to say might be a little different than what other people are saying.
I'll let Darren go first.
Okay, for me, where do I start with Dion Charles? I've become a little bit, not bored, but exasperated with the whole situation, really. I mean, on social media, Twitter in particular, Stanley fans seem to be thinking about it. He's in the thoughts a lot more than he's probably been in mine. He's leaving for whatever reason he wants to. He's just another player to leave for me. He may have a different take on the whole situation. He might not be allowed to say what he really thinks. I don't really know, but for me, I'm just pleased it's all over with and he can move on, start his new career. Good luck to him. For me, I've just forgot about him, to be quite honest. I don't mean that in a childish sort of way. I just genuinely don't care.
No, I agree, Darren. I think the story just dragged on and on and on to the point where people just wanted an end to it. And I think going to Bolton, I don't personally see that as a step up. I mean, I know going into this, he was looking for a move to a bigger club, but I mean, it's a bigger club in terms of stadium and history and name, but I mean, they're going in the wrong direction. They're not having a great season. Their manager's under pressure. I think the pressure will be on him if he doesn't perform. And I think you'll find it a lot more unforgiving at Bolton than he did at Stanley. But, I think that deal was done pretty quick as soon as the window opened. But it seems to me that there wasn't really a lot of other interest worth pursuing from Stanley's point of view. And they just wanted an end to the saga as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with what you guys are saying in terms of I'm just glad this is over. It's drug on far too long and taking up way too much attention. And you know what I kind of am seeing here is that it seems that Dion in some ways has become a public enemy number one for some Stanley fans. And I'm just going to come out and say, it might not really be a popular opinion, but I don't necessarily know that that's fair. Now, in my opinion, I think that Dion probably got maybe what wasn't the best advice from an agent. I think that, he certainly could have handled some things better. I think the idea that he had said that he would sign a contract and then kind of went back on his word, that certainly is something that's a bit of a red flag. Another thing coming out, and I hate to even bring this up because I hate this kind of stuff to begin with, but I already see it. Bolton, he's off to a bit of a rough start. Apparently, he's having to apologize for some tweets that he made a few years ago, and I hate that stuff to begin with. But it just seems like Dion has a lot working against him right now, and I don't want to see that. I'm going to be the first person to say, as a Stanley fan, I'm going to continue to support Dion Charles and wish him the same continued success that we would wish to any former Stanley player, because at the end of the day, I think that something that gets lost on us as fans sometimes is that at the end of the day, for a footballer, it's their job, it's their career, it's their livelihood, and ultimately the club that they play for is their employer. And when I just look at it, and I think that we obviously as fans and supporters get emotionally invested in a club, and tend to think that the players should have that same emotional investment. And I don't necessarily know that that's fair, because, for instance, Darren, if you were to come to me and say, I'm going to leave my company tomorrow and go work for a competitor or something like that, that's your job. I'm not going to personally have any opinion on that. And I think that, sometimes as supporters, we need to step back and say, this is their job. This is their livelihood. We may not agree with whatever reason they want to leave the team, but at the end of the day, it's kind of none of our business.
Well, I agree to some point, Phil, but not to the point where he sort of went on strike basically and reneged on his word while he was still employed at Stanley. And I think that's the part that doesn't sit well with the fans. And like Darren said, I think it's over and done with. And let's move on.
Dion, no.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on. And I definitely agree. And that was why at the beginning, before I started my little rant there, I did say, certainly there were some things that, especially the reneging on his word of wanting to sign the contract. That's the thing that leaves the most sour taste. But I just think at the end of the day that there's a lot that we probably don't know that goes on behind closed doors, and that at the end of the day that let's move on and
exactly.
Let's talk about Darren's new project, which I'm really excited about, where you're going to be focusing on the Peel Park era after 1919. So I guess the post World War I era, if you will. And I see that you had made some announcements on your Stanley Memories page. So tell us about your new project, Darren.
Yeah, I mean, I don't exactly know where I'm going with it. The reason I started looking at the early days of Peel Park, foremost, I don't know anything about it. I know quite a bit about post-war Peel Park and Walter Galbraith's team and that sort of thing. But it's an area that I don't really think has had much coverage. So I decided just to start delving into it, really, and seeing what I could come up with. Where it goes to, I don't know. I've already got a lot of information and various people helping me. Unbelievably, it's happened in a few weeks and it seems to be snowballing. But where it goes, if it goes to a book, I'm not sure. And it'll be quite a long time off. But in the meantime, I'm just basically enjoying it and just looking into the different sort of characters who were involved with the club at that time, realising that the original Stanley went bust towards the end of the First World War. And then the club was resurrected at Peel Park. I mean,
there's so many. It wouldn't die.
There's so many parallels, Phil, with what happened at the end of Peel Park and the Crown Ground. It's almost history repeating itself. The more you start reading about it, and the characters and resurrecting the club and the community getting together, it's almost the same story, but 50 years apart. And then the backdrop is obviously, well, not obviously, but a lot of these guys are coming out of World War I. Some of the players have served in the war. They've got players who were playing for the original Stanley who don't come back from the war. And there's all sorts of backstories to this that are just absolutely remarkable. I won't go on for too long, but
you already have my attention.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of stories. I'll just share them with you.
One thing I wanted to ask you about. One thing I wanted to ask you about real quick is so here in the United States, one thing that you'll find in baseball would be the one exception, but outside of baseball, pretty much before 1950 or at least before World War II, stat keeping and record keeping in terms of wins and losses and championships were taken care of, but trying to find stats on guys that played American football in 1920 is almost impossible. Are you running into that same type of issue with this?
Yeah, fortunately, in around 1990, there was a book published with all the stats from the Football League days, which started in 1919. Or anything before that is, like you said, it's a minefield. I can't find much, and obviously it's 100 years ago. There's nobody around today who knows anything about it, seen it. But you've got half a chance when the third division started in 1919 because records were started to be kept then and published. But it's so I've got the stats. It's more the individuals and the stories that are coming out of this that are just absolutely blowing my mind. I mean, there's one guy who, in 2 years into the being at Peel Park, they decided to go for a player manager, this Curtis Booth, who's been a player, who's come back from being in the war, been blown up on a battlefield. Anyway, they make him a player manager, and that's absolutely unheard of then at that time. So,
oh, really?
He starts being
I would have thought that back then it was...
No, back then they had a manager of the club who would be more of a Andy Holt figure, so he would be the financial guy. And then they had a trainer who would train the team, and basically they just turned up and played. So he was
really a head coach person,
not a technical guy. So he turns up. He's been a player. He's player manager. He gets injured in the first game, which is a disaster, and then basically becomes a manager. But they can't afford to keep him. Then he becomes a coach, and he travels all around Europe, and he's a coach in Germany, in Holland, at big clubs as well, in France, and he manages the Egyptian team at the Olympic Games. It's just mind-blowing.
Wow.
Just, way ahead of his time. We're talking the 1920s here and 30s.
Yeah, I mean.
And he's coaching in Europe. It's unbelievable. Yeah, and the second guy, I've just been looking at him in the last couple of days.
Sounds like a whole book just on him.
That's just on him. And there's another one, this guy called Harry Howell. He only plays a few games for Stanley in 1922. Similar kind of story around wartime. His career gets interrupted, but he's playing for Stanley and playing for Wolverhampton Wanderers, and he's playing professional sport. I don't know if this happens in the States, but he's actually playing for England at cricket as well in Australia. He's playing two professional sports simultaneously throughout the 20s. I don't know if you'd have that in
We had over here. We had Jim Thorpe, who I believe was in. He played, I think, pro American football and competed in the decathlon in the Olympics. He was just an incredible, considered one of the greatest athletes of all time. He was actually Native American, and one of the first Native Americans to ever play pro football over here. Another person is Babe Diedrichson-Zaharias, who actually would be on the women's side of things, but she was like a golfer or a tennis player, participated in the Olympics. I want to say she played professionally like 10 different sports. So when you go back to that era, the 1910s and 1920s, there were just some incredible people like that.
Yeah, there's some remarkable stories out there. So, and this is just unfolding every day, and people are sending me things, and especially I'm intrigued by World War One and the Accrington Powells element of that, has rolled that back into the football club and all the things that were going on around that time, and yeah, it's fascinating. So it's keeping me busy at the moment.
Phil, you over here in North America, and I don't know if it's broadcast in the UK, but ESPN does a documentary series, 30 and 30, they call it, or it's something that HBO could do. But I think something, a story like this it's a sports story that would be of interest to a lot of people, and it's something that I think, well, I
like a 30 for 30.
Yeah, 30 for 30. Yeah, I think that's something that would be, I don't know if you could ever get that far, but I mean, I think it's a story that would resonate with a lot of people because of the sports history and everything. But no, I think that's a very interesting time period and an extremely interesting project. And it might, just like you say, as Darren, it's developing a life of its own, and you just have to go where it steers you.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see where it goes. See if it runs out of steam. I don't think it will. It's going the other way, but it's just how long it takes and what angle I go for.
Just getting back to the season so far, wanted to get your thoughts, guys, and maybe we'll start with Darren for your best and worst part of the first half of the season.
Right. Okay, so I'll start with the worst. I think the Burton Albion game away from home. For me, I just watched that. I couldn't find anything in that to take away any kind of credibility. It was just a terrible performance, and I think there has been one or two around that period, and I think it just had to get to the point. I think John and Jimmy just had enough, haven't they? And there were some real harsh words, and I'll come on to the good points in a minute. And I think since those, the defence were all over the place. The keepers they were lost with what were going on in front of them. And I think sometimes things have to get so bad that you need, to have some harsh words and then turn the corner. So that's my worst one. And then best one, whether it's because it's freshest in my mind, but I don't think it is the Rotherham game. And I know Coley got a bit upset with Dan Jewell for saying that we haven't beat the big teams at home and we haven't really competed. And Coley got a bit frustrated, tongue in cheek, but I tend to know exactly where Dan's coming from on that, because I think we have frozen when we've played big clubs at home in league games over the past 2 or 3 years and been intimidated by the big crowds. And for me, when we played Rotherham the last Storm game, I just thought we stood up to it, whether the players are just getting used to that or everything just clicked on the day, and the atmosphere was absolutely fantastic. It just felt, and I know they say don't get too high when and too low on results, but I've never been a great believer in that, mate, because if we win well, it can make my weekend. If we get stuffed, it can ruin my weekend. So, and I think that's just part of being a football fan. So I don't go with that theory. I know where they're coming from a professional point of view, but from a fan point of view, I think it means everything, the result on a Saturday.
Yeah, and because I know when they lose, I go kick the neighbour's cat, and the neighbour's not too happy when I go in the house and start kicking the cat around. But
Yeah.
So
they're mine.
On the worst for me, and you touched on it, Darren, but I'm going for that period of the first 3 weeks of November where we lost to Port Vale 5-1, Plymouth 4-1. Sheffield Wednesday was a better result, but we were down. They lost 3-2, and the away to Burton Albion 4-0 because the defense was, like you said, all over the place, and that was, and it didn't look like there was a positive coming out of that. So that's the worst part. I'm going to put it as a group, the time frame as that, and I think again, I have written down too in my notes the Rotherham match, and you mentioned the atmosphere. And it's strange because generally you don't sense a lot of that on iFollow. But I tell you, you could feel the electricity, like it was a cup tie, and it did come through. And maybe that's the ultras and the singing and the overall way they played. But that was for the best for me. But I got to give an honorable mention to that match away at Charlton, where they scored. Where Pell scored and they beat them 3-2 in that free kick. Then I've got one other honorable mention is that first half against Fleetwood in the Carabao Cup, where Pell and Hamilton scored those two worldly goals in the first half. I thought that was a really a top moment of the season as well.
Yeah,
well, you guys. Well, you guys have covered just about everything I was going to say. My high point was that Charlton match that Tony was just talking about. I mean, to me, away 11,000, almost 12,000 in the stands, score 3 goals, beat a bigger sized club like that. To me, that's the biggest win that Stanley's had this year. And then the low point, you have to go over that. It's a 6-match period, 5 league matches plus the FA Cup where we went winless, 2 draws, and then the 4 losses in a row, kind of culminating with the Burton game that you mentioned, Darren. And I am one that subscribes to the don't get too far up after a win, don't get too far down after a loss. But I mean, at that period, it had been so many losses in a row that it was really getting hard not to get far down. And we've really turned things around since then with, 4 wins and only 1 loss and 1 draw since then. So, I mean, whatever John and Jimmy have putting the Kool-Aid since then has gotten things turned around. One other low point that I did want to kind of mention, and this is probably a surprising one because I'm always one that says I'm not real big on cup ties, but that first round match against Port Vale, a 5-1 loss against a lower league team. I mean, that was a bit disappointing. I'd have liked to see a little bit more out of us that day. So I mean,
definitely.
That was definitely a low point for me, but I mean, it's been a Jekyll and Hyde season, and really that 6-game stretch has been the biggest Hyde point. If you look at some of the other losses, I mean, away to Sunderland, home at Wigan, away at Oxford, I mean, those are tough games that, you're not going to get chewed down about it if you lose them, but, overall, I got to say that I'm happy with where we're at in the standings, and I think that anybody who's followed Stanley long term, if they're not happy with 10 points or 10th place and 34 points out of 24 games in League One, I mean, what more can you really ask?
Yeah, with the current form, I mean, you've got to be pleased the way they've turned it around. And as Darren said, there was meetings and some words spoken, and they seem to have really pulled it together. And you've got 3 clean sheets in a row, 2 losses in the draw. I think basically 10th is based on the inconsistency in the first part of the season and the injuries. I think 10th is, if somebody would have said that based on what you're going to go through, I think people would have taken that in a heartbeat. So I think 10th is pretty fair where we should be, and I'm very happy with the form they're in now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's where we probably thought we'd be around here, but probably didn't realise we'd have to go through so many lows, because at that point we felt like a relegation team for a few weeks, didn't we? So we hit rock bottom, which I wasn't expecting to get so bad at that point. So thankfully we're through that. We're coming into form at a good time now, well placed. So everything's looking rosy now, isn't it, as we move into this year?
Well, I think too, and there was a lot of criticism of the formation, and there was a change that they made and went with 4 at the back. But it's hard to say whether they'll go back to 3 at the back. And I think if they get comfortable defensively, and I like Sykes in the middle and Nottingham on the fullback position, and if they can get consistency, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't go back to a back 3. But just to touch on that Rotherham match, and I think we talked about the crowd, and there was a good turnout from the home crowd, and I think there was a few fans that showed up there that were Burnley fans, and Burnley was cancelled, and I think a few people showed up that were Rover fans as well. And we're treated to a really,
wow,
really,
you said that word.
well, and it's very hard to get Burnley and Rover fans in the same place and not going at each other. And I think, but I think there was some people who turned up just to see a football match and really got treated to a really good match. And I thought, the thinking that, you know what, Stanley's a good place to go and watch a football match. So I think they gained a few fans on that match anyway. I just want to touch on that about the Rotherham match.
Well, from my perspective on that we're talking about atmosphere at that game. After the game, it other than the games when we've won promotion, I've never known an atmosphere like it. I know, for whatever reason, I don't know, a big crowd, or we've just come off a bad run, we beat the top of the league. It just all came together at once. And yeah, the ultras and the way they were singing, the display they put on, it was John and Jimmy's 20 years. They had a flag for them. Honestly, hairs on back of my neck are standing up now thinking about it. It was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable atmosphere. And
I like the fact that the iFollow camera stayed on a bit afterwards and watched the Jimmy and Johnny go down to the Clayton end and stand in front of the banner, and they were taking pictures. And I just thought it was just tremendous. And Sean McConville getting the goal. It just, like you say, if they were making a Hollywood film, they couldn't have written a script more fitting for Hollywood, really.
Yeah, that was one for Phil's Netflix series. That was an episode, and it's home right, that one.
Well, I'll tell you, Darren, you did a great job of describing that, because I could literally feel like I was there for a moment while you were describing it. That was just brilliant. And speaking of Sean McConville, I mean, he's a guy that he had struggled with some injuries and things, but he's really starting to put together a nice season. He's up to 6 assists now, and it's really good to see Sean getting back in form, because with all the injuries the past few years, let's hope he can stay healthy and put together a good second half.
Yep, definitely.
All right, well, what transfer rumors are most intriguing to you guys? I mean, it's January, so I think as football fans, it's obligatory that we have our transfer window discussion. So Tony, I know that you have been talking with some folks and maybe have a few ideas what might be going on.
Well, yeah. Do we have any money in the budget for a new jingle for breaking news, where they flash, like a breaking news?
I can probably do something like that. Okay. I've got a mini keyboard.
Anyway, I was doing some digging in to see if I could find out what's going on and behind the scenes, and I've and I know it's out there about Caden Jackson, but I have confirmed from a reliable source that bringing Caden Jackson back is definitely in on the cards, and so that's a story that's being developed. And the other thing that really I found out was that they've actually made an offer for a striker from a Premier League club, and they're just waiting to hear.
Phil, we don't want him.
No,
no chance.
We don't have enough letters in the shop to put on the back of his jersey. So no, but, I don't know if we can afford his wages or if he'll take a pay cut. But anyway, they've made an offer on a Premier League striker. Now, whether he's with the under 23s or he's a bench player, I don't know. But we'll see how that develops. And there's some interest in a couple of defenders. And I know we had on previous guests said that they were looking at possibly a left back. So that seems to be an area that they are working on.
Left back came up in I forget if it was one of the question and answer sessions or maybe it was a John Coleman video, but I know left back came up again somewhere else that I saw. So it seems to be a reoccurring theme. So I wouldn't be surprised.
And the one other thing I did confirm is at the present time of our recording, there's been no offers on any of our players. So that means right now, there's no offers come in for Bishop or Sykes, or even you look at Toby Savin because he's really got the eye of a lot of people too. So that's where it sits as far as the inside information. So that's all I have for you guys.
Well, that's some brilliant research there, and especially knowing that at least we're going to hang on to our guys. That sounds like a big thing. Caden Jackson, I mean, he was brilliant for us in the League Two title season, so bringing him back would be amazing. I've got to think that there's some other clubs interesting. I will be pleasantly surprised if they do bring him back. One thing I want to throw out, just because I have to, is that Phoenix Rising have not re-signed Solomon Asante, and the trip from Accrington to Ghana is a lot shorter than the trip to Phoenix for Ghana. So who couldn't use a winger that scores 20 goals and 15 assists? Andy Holt, get Solomon Asante.
Well, why don't you get Subaru over in Ghana to put a good word in?
Hey, that might be an idea.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the same with you, Phil. Caden Jackson, it does obviously appeal to me because he's a class player, but something niggling in the back of my mind thinks they're going to get an offer from a potentially bigger club than Accrington for him. It may be that it's his saying he wants to enjoy his football again, maybe come on loan. I don't know how it's going to work, but if it does happen, I'm the same as you. I'd be pleasantly surprised.
I think if they, the way the information I'm getting is that if that it's not a guarantee, because if it was sort of a really odds on that he was coming back, I don't think the offer would go in for a striker with a Premier League club. So I think Caden Jackson, if he does come, might be a backup plan if they don't get the person they're looking for.
I think it's one of those things where this won't really be something that you get, Darren, because it's a U.S. thing. But Tony, with the American football draft where they draft the players out of college, and if you're a team that has, say, the 10th pick in the draft and you've got your eye on a player and you're thinking, well, I'd really like to get this guy, but somebody's probably going to take him before pick 10. That's what I feel like Accrington's position is with Caden Jackson, where, yeah, if he falls to us at pick 10, that would be great, but somebody's going to grab him first. I just, like Darren says, I just got a feeling that, some bigger club's going to step in but who knows if he says, maybe he's the opposite of Dion Charles and says, I only want to play for Accrington. That's where I had my best years. I want to get my mojo back. And, that's football.
Well, he certainly would. I think he certainly would play well up front with Bishop, but let's see how it pans out with this other individual that they're interested in, because as I say, if he signs, then obviously Kane Jackson won't be coming, and then they'll concentrate on the defender. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, on another note, Tony, I mean, you mentioned Toby Savin there. I mean, if you'd have asked me this question about what we needed to strengthen about a month ago, I would have said, and I think I did say to somebody, a goalkeeper. I thought we had two young guys who they were really struggling confidence-wise and form-wise. And I thought we needed an experienced keeper to see us through to the end of the season. But Toby Savin, this last month, he just looks a different character altogether. He just looks like he's really come of age to me as a keeper. Yeah,
and Sykes has been in 2 League One teams or AFL teams of the week back-to-back. I mean,
Sykes is good.
Yeah, they've just stepped up their play, and you can see the confidence back in their play, and they're playing the positions better. Sykes and Nottingham are staying in the positions; they're not getting caught out, and I think that's you got 3 clean sheets, so they obviously are doing the job. But anyway, that's
one thing you mentioned earlier, Tony, where it was Sykes in the center, and I think that's a big deal because to me. Especially when they would have this 3-man back line. I didn't think that Sykes looked comfortable playing on the left side. He definitely is a guy that is much better in that central position. And I think with Hughes moving on, it's really opened it up for him to become that stalwart center half that's at Accrington for the next 10 years. It just mans that defense.
So, our next topic is just wanted to get your guys who you think for promotion and who do you think's going down to League Two?
Right, for me then I'll jump in. Obviously it's not an easy pick for some of these, but this is my gut feeling. My gut feeling for the top 2 automatics are Wigan. I think the best team I've seen play at Accrington this season. I know it's only 1 game, but I've been following them as well. And I think Sunderland will finally do it this year. And I can see Rotherham having to go up through the playoffs. And that's my 3. Wigan and Sunderland, Rotherham through the playoffs. What about your promotion picks, guys?
Well, I'll let you go. I'll let you go next.
Okay, well, I think that one thing that's kind of strange in League One this year is that it's not as competitive as it normally is. I think that usually we're talking about maybe 1 or 2 teams that separate themselves at the top, and then you just have this huge roadblock of teams and just no idea who's going to finish 3rd through 7th and so on. But when you look at it this year, especially when you start looking at the goal differences, there's 7 teams right now that have a plus 13 or better goal difference. And then everybody else is either on the negative side or, Pompey's at plus 6, Ipswich plus 5. But when you look at those top teams, it just seems like a top-heavy league this year. And then, you have Rotherham and Sunderland up there. Wigan, they're looking really good. So, I mean, to me, they're almost a clear away top three. And then the next 3 or 4 below them are clear and away. And then it almost just kind of seems like everybody else is fighting for 8th, which is why I'm not confident that Stanley can get to 6th and get into the playoffs. I just think that the gulf between the middle of the table and those top 6 or 7 teams is a little bit too far. I do agree that I think this is finally Sunderland's year, but I think I've been saying that for about 3 years now. Wigan, they look super impressive. And, Rotherham, they just mathematically, they're by far the best team. So I'm going to go with, just stay chalk is the term that we use over here, and say that the top 3 teams will advance, and I'll say that Wigan's the one that ends up doing it through the playoffs.
Okay, I'll give the Cole's Notes version. I'm going to say Rotherham and Sunderland are automatic promotion, and I'm going to go for a playoff winner of Sheffield Wednesday.
Wow.
I know that's a bit of an outlier, but if they turn some of those, they've only lost 5, and if they turn some of those draws into wins, they'll move up. So, and they could hit in the second half of the season. So I think we all agree on Sunderland are going to go up, and I'm going to put Rotherham in that group. I like the way they played against Stanley, and I think they're a solid team, and they put runs together. So that's my 3 for going up. And then
you're not trying, Tony. Tony, you're not trying to keep your friends happy on that Wednesday podcast that you went on, are you?
No.
All right, okay.
I mean, with Sheffield Wednesday, I see a lot of Sunderland the last few years in them, where you just have all those draws, and you keep saying, well, if they convert some of those draws, and then at the end of the year, there's 20 draws.
and I'm not trying to kiss up to the 2 Sunderland podcasts that I've been guests on, because that didn't come into it either. But no, anyway, that's my 3 picks. And I'm gonna start off with my 4 for relegation, and I think we may have some common ones on our list here. In no set order, I'm going to go with Doncaster, Crewe, Gillingham, and just because I don't like them, Morecambe.
Right. Well, almost for me. Doncaster, Crewe, Gillingham. And because I don't like them, Fleetwood. No, and I generally do think Fleetwood will go down, but I don't mind Morecambe, to be quite honest. But
am I the only one that's surprised about Doncaster? I mean, they're not usually a team that struggles. They're usually mid-table.
Look at the team that I'm surprised at being down there that are in a battle for relegation is Lincoln. So I mean, if there's any surprise that if they go down, I think Lincoln is the one. But I think they'll survive. And what's your forward, Phil?
Well, the thing about Lincoln is I think that they had a really steady thing going with the Kelly brothers, and then they left. And then, last year they kind of did a complete overhaul of the roster, and it worked for 1 year. But they seem to be a team that right now they're not happy with standing pat. And I think maybe they've just changed the recipe one too many times and ended up with Coke too.
Okay, so
that nobody got the reference when in the 1980s Coca-Cola came out with Coke 2 and almost crashed the whole company, and then they had to.
No,
never heard of it. Never heard of it, Phil.
No.
Exactly. So it was in like 1986.
Phil.
What?
Phil.
Yeah.
Phil, give us your 4 going down, Phil.
Well, I don't like Morecambe, and they've got a minus 15 goal difference, so I'll throw them in there, and I'll have Coke 2 staying up instead. I
think that's a separate podcast, Coke 2. I think we need a full podcast on that one.
it was a famous thing in the 1980s. Coca-Cola was trying to compete with Pepsi, and they changed their formula and came out with Coke 2 or New Coke, and it was supposed to be this big thing, and people hated it, and it almost crushed the company, and then they had to reverse and come back out with Coke Classic, their original formula.
Phil, give us your bottom four, Phil.
Well, you know what? I'm going to say Doncaster makes a late run and gets out of it. Just why not? We'll send Fleetwood down as well because like Darren said, I'm not a fan. And then we'll go ahead and go with Crew, and I'm going to say Cheltenham takes a tumble. So I'm going to go with Cheltenham, Morecambe, Fleetwood, and Crew.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you. We finally got there, but thanks, Phil.
What about Talk 2? Where they're mid-table?
Darren, don't.
We missed.
Have we got anything else that you guys wanted to throw in? Oh, yes. Okay. Just before we wrap up, I know, Darren, you've been working on a couple of guests. Have you got anything that you can share with us?
Yes. So we've got a good lineup of guests. Well, we've had a good lineup of guests for the last couple of years, but some new guests coming on. This time next week, we're going to be recording with Chris Grimshaw. He's a Stanley legend, 360 games over 3 periods. Still a really popular guy in the town, so I'm looking forward to that. He's a real good character. Got Willie Donachie, who's at the Stanley Academy, ex-Man City and Scotland international. He's played in the States. He's managed the Montserrat national team at the moment. He's got a real varied career and interesting character. And then we've got a guy called Paddy Lacey. Now, Paddy, he was at Stanley a few years ago, had his troubles. He's got a colourful life. He's got himself back on the straight and narrow, and he's as well as playing part-time football, he's a professional boxer now as well. He's been headlining at Liverpool and the Echo Arena. So if he's from Liverpool, he knows John and Jimmy.
Lining up a Jake Paul fight or anything?
Oh, no, a real fighter. He's a real boxer, this guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's a proper boxer, but we'll ask him about that.
Grimshaw interview, that's one that I'm really looking forward to, because I know that for a long time we've wanted to get him on, and he's just such a legend with the club. I'm really excited for that one.
Yep, definitely. And there's another chap actually who's just confirmed today, and he's called Peter Marsden. Now, Peter. Oh
yeah, I know. Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, he was the chairman through some really difficult times at Stanley. So he's post Eric Worley and right up to Andy Holt taking over. So
yeah, that's why I was gonna ask. He was kind of one of the bridge between Ilias Khan and Andy.
He's right. He knows Ilias really well, and he was there at the same time as Ilias, and he propped the club up for a few years through some real difficult times, and he's going to have some interesting stories to tell. And he just contacted me today, say he'd love to come on and tell his story. So,
great, that's brilliant.
Those are some of my favorite interviews. Is when we get to go deep into team history and hear some of those behind the scenes stories. I'm sure he's got some good ones.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some good shows coming up.
Oh, those are excellent guests. I just wanted to add on before we wrap up is I wanted to thank all the individuals that sent in videos for our milestone 50,000 downloads, and we asked the people, and they were so accommodating, and nobody said no, and they, the videos were tremendous, and Phil's been releasing them, and I think I just wanted to thank everybody who did that. And on the one note, one of our videos was Jamie Spear, and that video will be out when this has been released. But I do believe that he suited up for Warrington the other night. Is that correct, Darren?
Yeah, so he was asked to step in as an emergency keeper. 46 years of age. He played for Warrington, so not sure how the result went, but I think he did okay by all accounts, and some achievement playing at a decent non-league level when you're at 46, even if you're in goals.
Yeah, he was our last next to last one. No, he was our last guest. So and it's fitting that he's still going out in the pitch performing. So thanks to everybody who participated in that. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you, Tony, for putting all that together. Just tremendous work that you did on getting all those videos together, and that's just an amazing project that you've done with all the write-ups and getting the videos together. And I just can't thank you enough for that. And as far as Jamie Spear played in goal, that had to be fun for him to just get back in there one more time.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's it for me, unless you guys have anything else.
No, I'm all good. It's been good fun chatting with you guys again.
Yes, it is. It's always a pleasure. We've been off for the holidays, and with the guests that you've got lined up, we've got some top quality guests, and it's hard when you look at what the guests we've had and think you can improve or get guests on that are just going to be as good or better, and you've got some dandies coming up there, Darren. So I'm excited. Every one of them have something unique to bring to the table, and I'm looking forward to those.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. I mean, the guest list that you have coming up is the proverbial murderer's road.
Yeah, I got to run because I got to take the neighbor's cat back. I've been kicking around there, so I got to take it back.
You don't need to do that. We're heading to the top of the league, Tony.
Well, I know. I just the cat wanders over. I just wondering where I was on the weekend.
Well, guys, it's been a brilliant time talking football with you again, and with the form that Stanley's in, I think we've got a good second half, and I'm looking forward to the signings. We'll knock on wood for Kate and Jackson, and until then, on 3, 1, 2, 3, on Stanley.
On.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.